Hello and welcome to River Horse's How to Make Your Character for the Labyrinth. To help me out today, we have the cast of Flintlocks and Fireballs, who are going to be going through the process, making their characters, and then we'll be playing some Labyrinth. The game of Labyrinth is a game where you play as characters that you've made yourselves, who have sort of dived into the world of Jim Henson's Labyrinth. You guys will have 13 hours in order to find what the Goblin King has stolen from you, face him, get it back, and go home for a cup of tea. If you don't manage it within the 13 hours, then you will forget why you ever entered the labyrinth, become lost, and perhaps even forget who you are. So the stakes are pretty high. Yeah. So, to explore the labyrinth, what we need is a character. Character creation follows 6 steps. The first step we did a little bit off camera. That's get ready. That is getting all of our pens, pencils, and getting the character sheets, which are available to photocopy from the book or to download on our website. So those are more than accessible. There's also a character sheet for the Goblin King as well. The Goblin King sort of follows a different and more... they can choose whatever they like. They're a king, after all. So their character creation is more just naming their Goblin King, deciding what they look like, because they have all of the traits and no flaws whatsoever. But for you guys, you need to decide, first of all, your kin. I'll go through the steps first, actually. So get ready. There's pick your kin, which is sort of your race, who you are. Pick your talent, so that's something you're really good at. Picking your flaw, so that's something you're maybe less good at. Picking your goal, so this is something you guys sort of choose together. This is basically what the Goblin King has stolen from you, why you're in the labyrinth in the first place, sort of what you're aiming for. And finally, we sort of bring it all together. We come up with character names, what they look like, how they might act, and all of that jazz. So, diving right in, let's start off with the kin, your races. So, this is part of the wonderful thing about Jim Henson's Labyrinth, is all the weird and wacky creatures that inhabit it. So, your choice of races are, we have the Dwarfs, Fieries, Goblins, Humans, Knights of Yore, Horned Beasts, and Worms. Each one sort of has its own abilities. Some have drawbacks, some have traits. And going through, we have the Dwarves. So Dwarves are the caretakers of the labyrinth. They have actual jobs that they go to every day. Usually sort of hands-on trades person sort of stuff. So they might be plumbers, plasterers, masons. And when you create a dwarf character, you choose what your job is within the labyrinth, and you get a tool that might help you with that job and also with your adventure. And you also sort of gain a helpful sort of bonus on any tests that might have to do with that job. Fieries are, they can detach all of their limbs. So you could take off a finger, a hand, your eyes, your head. Only you're allowed to throw your own head.
Yes.
Against the rules, otherwise.
Against the rules. So that, as you can probably imagine, if you've played role-playing games before, that's a really useful ability to have. I'm sure you're thinking of lots of things you could do with that. There is a downside. If you ever leave any of your body parts behind, they don't magically come back or anything, and your hand can get lost if you can't see it. It doesn't have any eyes. So, be careful with your body parts, guys. They can also create little fire from their finger, sort of like a little lighter, useful for the pyromaniacs amongst us. Goblins don't have any sort of specific bonus. Their bonus comes more from the fact that if you're going to play if you're going to play a goblin character, then what you're going to want to do is come up with a reason why you've betrayed the Goblin King. So almost all goblins are very loyal to the Goblin King. So you're going to need a really good reason for why you're betraying him, why you're helping out the rest of the party. But that comes with a bonus of the fact that other goblins in the labyrinth aren't going to know that you've betrayed the Goblin King. So it's going to be easier to sort of get away with lying, with looking inconspicuous, as you're the most common species in the labyrinth, if you can even be called a single species. Humans, on the other hand, they stick out like a sore thumb in the labyrinth. They are, although normal to us, obviously very curious creatures in the labyrinth. They gain an extra trait. So basically when you're choosing your talents, you get to be good at an extra thing as a human. Also often sort of the landscape of the labyrinth is kind of a little bit moulded around a human sort of psyche that is in the labyrinth. So often it sort of seeps in, sort of like how all of the creatures in the labyrinth, lots of them appear in Sarah's bedroom and sort of are parts of her psyche. Then we have the Knights of Yore. So they have the honourable trait, which, as well as helping out if they're trying to sort of prove that they're not lying or anything like that, it also means that their name must start with Sir or Lady. They also can find steeds within the labyrinth. And if you find a steed within the labyrinth, tame it, then you can ride it for the rest of the game, which might give special abilities, useful steeds. Then we have the horned beasts. So they're a bit like Ludo. They're very big, which means that they struggle to fit in sort of smaller passageways, things like that. You might have to go around the long way if you have a horned beast with you. But they do have a very unique ability in that they can choose a type of object. So for Ludo it was rocks, but for your horned beast it could be glass, plants, furniture, or you could come up with something entirely your own. And you can control that telekinetically. So by concentrating, you can move that item and control it with your mind. Finally, we have the worms, who are very small. And they can also climb walls. So whilst they're not going to be super useful in a big fight, a big scrap, very useful for maybe spying around corners, creeping through cracks in the walls, and generally being little roguey guys. So yeah, that's the kin. Do we have any ideas what which one of those jumped out, or whether we want to go through any of them?
I really like Sididimus in the film. I want to be a Knight of Yore.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be a brave one. I want to be a rubbish, cowardly one.
I have to be a worm.
Yeah.
I'm just a worm.
Liking Horned Beast.
Oh,
I love Ludo.
Ludo's great.
Yeah. I do like Horned Beast.
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
What about you, Samathy? What are you thinking?
I think, I'll go for a goblin. Yeah.
Useful.
Yeah.
Feels right to have one goblin in
It
does.
a labyrinth party as well.
A good guide, someone
Yes.
who knows their way around.
One person who knows what they're doing, vaguely.
Yeah.
Also, the one in the book has a tricorn, and
Ooh.
That's-
So cute.
it's
Yeah.
adorable.
Amazing. On brand as well.
That's amazingly on brand, yeah.
I love the artwork in this book.
It's
Yeah,
gorgeous.
the artwork is absolutely
Honestly,
gorgeous.
Get this book and stare at the artwork. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's what we've all been doing for the last half an hour.
Yeah, who did you say was the artist for this?
So it's a mix, and there's several artists. There's also a lot of... no, that's not really working. So it's a mix. There's quite a few artists who've worked on it, both creating new art, but also using the original illustrations by Brian Froud.
Cool.
So there's a wonderful series of goblins that he did that we've not only sort of used the art, but we've used a lot of the ideas and the names from those and sort of bounced off of those to create our own
That's very cool.
Brian
Our own
Froud is
stuff.
amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of artists. Chris Cæsar did a lot of the work on this as well. So, once you guys have decided what your kin is, next we decide something that we are great at. So this is your trait, and basically it's what your character excels at. So it could be lifting and pushing, it could be singing and dancing, could be sneaking and hiding, could be listening and spotting, could be endurance and bravery, could be running and jumping, or it could be something else that you sort of decide your character. So this is a short list of sort of the most common stuff, but maybe your character is a really good chef. Or
really good at making tea. That's adorable.
It sure would be effective had I chosen sneaking and hiding as my trait of choice.
But what have you chosen?
What have you chosen?
Singing and dancing.
Excellent.
Yes, perfect.
Come on, my lovely.
Yeah.
I just want to be a tiny worm who sings occasionally.
Oh,
That sounds lovely.
I love it.
I'm here for this.
I
Wonderful.
might do sneaking and hiding and be a giant thing that just stands really still and disappears.
That's
Really good
adorable.
camouflage.
Oh,
I'm gonna do that. Sneaking and hiding.
I know what I want to be bad at, but I think for good I might do running and jumping because I'm a knight.
Mm.
That feels like a thing knights would be good at. I think it's going to be completely counterbalanced by my flaw, but like,
I don't know, running is probably going to help with cowardly.
yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
So running and jumping. Okay.
Given I'm a goblin, and I'm always going to be on the lookout for other goblins betraying me, I think listening and spotting.
Yes. Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Also, a useful mix of skills.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Look at us being balanced. That
Yes.
Good Lord. There's a first time for everything.
Finally for your sort of individual character and the mechanical part is choosing something you're bad at. So this is usually sort of a psychological thing. So you might be a bit blunt, you might be forgetful, a coward, naive, overconfident, selfish. Again, you can come up with your own flaws.
Yeah.
You're going to hear me say that a lot during during this process because we really do want players to come up with their own ideas, their own. This is a guideline of sort of stuff that might come up. But,
so one trait and one flaw is the idea?
one trait and one flaw, unless you're human, in which case you have two traits.
It says for goblins under features, or rather under traits, you have goblin features as a trait.
Yeah. So
Cool.
basically, the way traits work is whenever you encounter a test that you think that feature or that trait would be useful for, then you get to usually you'd roll one die, and you're trying to hit a target number. If you have a trait that would be useful, then you roll 2 dice and you take the higher thing. If you have a flaw or there's some sort of extraneous circumstance that's sort of making it harder, you roll 2 dice and take the lower number.
That makes sense.
So, for example, if I, as a goblin, came across 2 other goblin guards, I could have advantage on convincing them, no, I'm supposed to be here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Lovely.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
Ooh.
Got something to blag that's going to be
Yeah.
useful.
I get
Yeah,
2
flagging.
flaws because one of my flaws is very big already.
My flaw is cowardly, as discussed.
I might go for forgetful. Like, I just stand still and hide and then forget that I'm supposed to be doing anything else.
Oh,
I just stand there.
I love that.
That's
It's adorable.
Okay, given this is an interesting counterpoint to listening and spotting, I'm going to choose naive as my flaw.
Oh.
Oh, so you hear something but you just don't realise it's bad.
Was it, no, I take it in and it's like, yes, anyway, moving on.
It's like, this is a thing. It's a trap, but I don't
I'm sure that
understand
ominous wailing is
Yeah.
fine.
Everything's fine.
No, it's
I
like,
want to...
I always pass that room. There's always wailing coming from that room. It's just kind of
It's the
what
room
it
of
does.
wailing.
It's the wailing room. Yeah. It's fine. Makes sense.
I've never been in it.
I mean, those voices just said to go back, so I went back.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh.
naive is so unhelpful in the labyrinth.
Yes.
I love
Just
it.
take everything at face value.
Yes, of course, it's fun.
I'm going to go for proud and touchy.
Ooh.
I like that.
Yeah. Especially about your singing.
Oh, yeah. And my tiny, tiny dancing.
Oh.
I don't know if I can't remember if I have legs.
Oh.
I don't
Well, we
think
do
you
have
do.
Well,
Tiny
you've got-
arms, but
You've got
I
lots of
don't have
little
legs.
arms.
Doing
Yeah.
armography.
We do have a reference word over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh. You definitely don't have legs.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Lots of tiny arms.
I'm very good at doing the worm.
Yes.
But
Get out of the studio.
so once you've decided sort of something you're bad at, then as a group, we need to decide what the Goblin King has stolen from you. So he might have only stolen sort of one thing from one of you, and the rest of you are helping that person sort of get it back. Or he could have stolen something from each of you in turn, or some sort of shared thing. This can be something physical, like a baby brother, a favourite book. You could even go silly and car keys.
Right.
But it could also be something sort of mystical, such as a fond memory or your singing voice, sort of something. So the actual goal itself gives your character motivation, but in the sort of rules of the labyrinth, the way of getting that thing back is always going to be the same, and that is to get to the centre of the labyrinth and confront the Goblin King. So what do you guys think the Goblin King might have taken from you?
Something mystical is more fun,
The
Yeah.
mystical is
Yeah.
much more fun.
especially since we're not from. None of us are humans. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be something weird, I think. So it's going to be like my favourite DVD.
In one of the test games, we had it was a hockey stick,
Oh, yeah.
and what was quite fun was the hockey stick was chosen sort of at the beginning, kind of random. They've taken something, hockey stick, whatever. But sort of about halfway through the game, the player sort of got more into the role playing aspect of it, and so. Like this hockey stick became something that her friend who'd moved away had given her.
Oh,
That's so sad.
So it became this very sentimental item,
Yeah.
despite
That's
it being
That's
like
nice.
The first thing that comes to my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Just-
fun that it can work like that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you are a coward, maybe who's stolen your courage? Let's go full Wizard of Oz.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's
do that.
Yes.
adorable.
Yeah.
Do we
Yeah.
want separate things, or are we just after the one thing and happening to help you?
I reckon I like the idea of just coming up with reasons to help this cowardly knight.
I've probably forgotten the reason.
Aww.
But I'm going to come along anyway.
just look fun, so you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll remember as we go.
Well, maybe your courage is being stored in a place that also has something of mine in it.
Could do.
Yeah.
Happily. What would it have?
All right. Well, lots of goblins like sort of hoarding things. Maybe it's a random bit of treasure or something that he thinks is treasure.
What if it's something not that valuable?
Yeah.
Yeah, something you treasure,
So-
but isn't
Yeah.
To you,
Pirate
it's
stick.
treasure.
All right.
It's a Kinder Surprise.
Oh, it's
On a-
adorable.
On a similar note to that, but what if it's like a cheap sort of bargain bin bubble wand kind of thing?
Bubble sword.
One of the
Yeah.
bubble
sword.
Yeah.
Swords.
Okay.
Big ones.
You're
You
a
can
goblin
wield it.
that loves
Well, the-
bubbles.
Oh,
Yeah.
So cute.
But also, being a goblin, it would be almost as big as him.
Oh.
Sam only plays tiny characters.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, that
the
is-
rules. Sam's character in the podcast is 2'10", so
I
I'm
love
gonna be
the idea of a
huge.
Zweihander bubble sword.
Yeah.
that's amazing.
It's like bright blue and red.
Yeah.
That sort of really primary colour
Yeah,
ones.
it's fun if there's like a reason to help each other.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really fun. I like
But I have forgotten what it was.
yeah, you've
That's great.
Oh,
I think I'm not going to decide. I think I'm going to see what happens when I meet you.
just find a
And
reason to
decide
come.
from there. Yeah.
That's fun. Cool. Yeah.
I feel like I'm not starting this with you.
Mm.
Like
Okay.
that,
You
mean
I wanna-
we'll meet
I
in the
maybe
first
appear
scene.
in like
Maybe
the
that's
first or second thing.
Okay.
You
maybe
just
that's a
enjoy
challenge. We find a reason for you
Yeah.
to come.
Yeah.
I like that.
Hello.
Hello.
Just a worm.
But,
And I've drawn a portrait.
Excellent. Nice draw.
I've also drawn a little portrait of my worm.
oh,
We'll
fantastic.
take pictures of these
Yeah,
on social
definitely.
media so
Yes.
people can
Yes.
see them.
Camera.
Oh yeah, there's a little camera. Put it on
Oh,
the
yes.
camera so people can see.
Yes.
I've not
If you
drawn.
move the dice and place
Yeah,
it back
focus.
down, it will
Yeah.
Is that the right way up? Or...
I can't tell.
So there we go.
Is that the right way up?
Perfect.
Okay.
Fantastic.
These dice are fun. I just want to roll all of them at once. Fireball. Not quite enough dice for a fireball. Oh, it would have been decent damage then.
Getting distracted by drawing pictures of tiny cats in night outfits now. That's where we're at.
I think I'm going to be able to control plants.
I like that as a thing. That's cute.
And
Oh, also
just
you can
get covered in moss.
Well, you can cover yourself in moss and forget where you were there.
Yeah, I
which is
just
adorable.
turn into a tree, just stand still, and now I'm a tree.
Oh, until someone's like, "Hey."
You know the plan? No, I don't.
Oh, there was a
Gone.
plan.
I forgot. Oh, maybe that's why I'm here, because I failed before and I have forgotten why I'm here.
Oh no.
This is
My
not
little
my first
cat
mission.
portrait for anybody who would like to see. I can't tell.
Oh,
Yes. It's
that's
a
adorable.
very high quality drawing.
All of my
Also,
drawings
Didymus
are
is
the...
like a little fox, so I think we're going to do the same thing, but a little cat. And I think that's adorable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, if I'm a coward and I'm a cat, I puff up, which
Yes.
is really fun.
All the fun.
Yeah.
Also, I guess we can't ignore that this might exist on the internet and cats.
Yeah, that is
Yes.
true.
Yeah. Very, very true.
Exceedingly on brand.
That is a pointy goblin.
Yes. That's the thing. I think this this goblin liking bubbles, but also being exceedingly pointy is a
That's
problem.
the saddest. Yeah. I like how you have sections for.
Extremely pointy.
I always love a portrait section.
I love a portrait section. They're really cool. You don't have them as default with things like
And look
D&D,
at the
but-
pretty dice with the owls.
Yes. Owls are bad though on these dice, which I must remember because I keep thinking that the picture is on a 6, but it's not. An owl is bad.
Yeah.
I've got
Owls are
an owl on my lapel.
evil. Aw.
They're not evil, they're just working for me.
Yeah.
Not evil, they're just different, is what we're saying.
Punch card villains.
Ethically efficient.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an awful phrase. I love it.
So, the final step is to sort of fill in the miscellaneous information, a lot of which you guys have already sort of dived into. So that's sort of thinking about what your character looks like, how they might act, what they do within the labyrinth. Yeah, and of course, the most important part, what's their name?
Ooh.
The hardest part of any character creation.
So
It
hard.
is.
Yeah.
And
It's a cowardly knight. I'm just going to give in and call him Sir Robin. That's what's happening. Yeah, I'm just leaning in. Robin with a Y, so it's different.
There you go.
I'm going to be lazy and call myself Leaf, but I'm going to spell it like the name Leaf. Like the
Aw.
Scandinavian name.
Ah, okay.
Possibly. Or I've spelled it wrong.
Who knows? You could be called Life.
Or Leif.
But I'm going to have like horns that look like branches
Ah, yeah, so
with
Leif.
leaves all over it.
This is going to get wholesome, I can tell.
I love him. He's fuzzy and cute.
Oh,
Okay, need a pointy name for a pointy goblin.
Ooh, pointy names.
All I'm thinking of is pointy.
Pointy the Goblin. It's adorable.
Maybe that's like his nickname.
Oh,
Goblin name.
Dexter.
Ah,
Point Dexter.
very good.
Hey.
Scrog.
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 Scrog is a pointy name.
Yes.
Hmm.
With a K.
The pointiest of letters.
Yes.
I think I'm going to keep
Nice.
I think I'm going to keep my actual first. I'm going to keep my maiden name secret.
Ooh.
Ooh.
So,
Exciting.
so as to you, I'm just Mrs. Worm.
Oh.
You be Mrs. Worm that is referred to.
Come inside, meet my husband.
You're the Worm's Mrs. That's amazing.
Are we just on the other side of that wall?
Yes.
Sarah and the wall were on the other side having the same conversation.
That's what's happening.
I love
It's
that.
canon.
Well, presumably then that means you live inside one of the
We've got a lovely little apartment that none of you are big enough to get into.
Oh,
It's like an open plan studio apartment in there.
Oh,
Yeah.
In this eventuality, neither of you have a concept of size at all, which is kind of great. You invite in people, come in. It's like, I'm huge. Can I fit? Oh, you'll be fine. Come in.
Well, it's another thing that I really like about the Labyrinth in general, and this adventure. There's not robust sort of combat rules. If you're the kind of party that sort of wants that, then you can sort of port in your own systems, of course. But this world, because there's none of that, it really does allow a worm and sort of horned beast to exist in the same party without too much friction. So I'm thinking there is a character very early on in the adventure whose job it is to sort of keep the gate to the labyrinth, to sort of basically sit there and convince people to go through their door. So there's sort of called Gloam and Loma. A dwarf and a horned beast, and your horned beast sounds quite similar to Loma. So I was thinking maybe replacing Loma with Leaf, and have sort of that be sort of the instigating factor. Maybe we have you two meet sort of very early, trying to enter the labyrinth.
Makes sense.
Realise we have a common goal. Yeah.
And then I do have ideas for bringing you into the game as well. So we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. Then we shall be back after that to start the labyrinth.
Thanks for watching our video. If you'd like to learn more, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. You can also like and subscribe to be told when we've released new videos.
Come join our band of privateers at Flintlocks and Fireballs, a British 5th edition D&D actual play podcast in the unique Napoleonic setting of Calcinia. Follow our halfling gundad, anachronistic rock star, and sugar-fueled child sorcerer as they sing original sea shanties, topple governments, haggle with hags, and weep bitter, bitter tears. New episodes every Tuesday.